Why do I keep being torn, caught up by all my demons, lost without that love?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Total Villain. Live Stories is back. We'll be talking to some fantastic individuals who are affiliated with Aston Villa in some manner about their life stories. And today we've got Tom Julian on. Tom, how are you, mate?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, it seems strange. I said to you when you asked me whether I wanted to do this, whether I was the right man for the job. I think you've had some great guests on, some really illustrious ones, Dan Bardell withstanding. But I think some big shoes to fill. But looking forward to chatting with you.
Well, that's the thing, okay, because you've been in the fan media scene, you've gone on to be successful in Germany in the Bundesliga, and you've had quite an interesting life story, in fairness. So I want to start at the beginning. I want to start at why you affiliate yourself with Aston Villa. What did you see in Aston Villa? Which made you to support them, made you follow them? What did you see in them that really interested you?
Yeah, so you're right. Like, I grew up in Cambridge, so not directly, not even remotely really close to Birmingham, and certainly I had Cambridge is not known so much for its football teams. We have Cambridge United who got promoted this year from League Two. But when I was growing up, Cambridge were a Division 3 side back in those days, and were kind of bouncing between Division 3 and the conference, and a couple of spells of administration. So Cambridge wasn't the choice for kids growing up in my neck of the woods. And generally it was, the normals, the Man U's, the Liverpools at that time. Arsenal were incredible growing up. And I really don't know exactly, what struck me about Villa. My dad was a big football fan, but played and wasn't really like a stadium going fan. He loved watching football, and playing was his passion. And so we watch it on the TV, but he didn't have a huge leaning. He'd say he was a QPR, Queen's Park Rangers fan, but not with any great conviction. And I actually have a very, very close to what happened to me. I got a poster. This isn't the exact one, but they, for some mad reason, Match kind of do retro posters as well. And this is very similar to the poster that actually kind of got me in love with Aston Villa. This was Dwight Yorke in '96, and I got hold of a Match magazine, and the big pull-out poster was Dwight Yorke, and I ended up just sticking it on my wall and going, okay, literally colours to the mast. I'm gonna be a Villa fan. I didn't know any other Villa fans, but it was just, all right, Dwight Yorke's my guy. And it turned out that season, Villa were super competitive for the chasing the title, and we had a string of good players in that time. So I got super lucky, I would say, to be a part of the Villa family, even in the first place.
Now, football often gets compared to a religion in the fact that once you're hooked, you're constantly following them home and away, even if you're there or not. So bear in mind that you're in Cambridge and there was a long commute to get to Villa Park. So you wouldn't necessarily go to games, but you would follow them from afar. Did you feel, how did you keep that strong connection with the club? Was there a few Villa fans where you lived, or was it literally just you by yourself and you tried to maintain that support for the club?
Again, it's an interesting one, because I grew up absolutely loving football, and I maybe I was a bit older than like kids now to start playing when they're 5, 6. I was about 10 or 11 when I started playing, but I loved it, and I loved playing in the garden with my friends, with my little sister, who, by the way, was a much better footballer than me, even though she was like 3 years younger than me, which was very frustrating. But my passion came from playing, and I can vividly remember being in the garden and just going through all of the Villa players and pretending to be Paul Merson or pretending to be Lee Hendry, these guys that you see on TV and you absolutely want to be them. And that was really my connection. As you said there, I didn't go to many games as a kid. I remember my dad again went to a Villa game, and I mean, I was, again, 7 or 8, so I wasn't super into it, but he brought me a shirt. And again, I managed to get hold of the replica. So this was my first shirt. Again, not the actual thing, I hasten to add, but the first shirt I ever owned was this one. And I remember my dad bringing it home, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is the greatest thing. And yes, so it was really through pretending to be these idols and watching them on TV and having that kind of more distant connection. But it wasn't really until I got a bit older and was able to kind of, get up to Villa Park on my own. We're talking quite a lot older. But even I started taking football a lot more seriously when I was kind of 13, 14, still harboring hopes of maybe playing. And that's really where I got super into it. And I had a paper round, and I was reading all the back pages before I was putting the papers in the letter boxes, and I was just hooked. And I'd say Villa were absolutely my team, but I just wanted to consume everything that was football. It didn't totally matter whether it was Villa or whether, David Beckham moving to Real Madrid or any kind of story. I was just all over it, reading, rereading, autobiographies, everything about football just had me hooked.
Now, being in the process of schooling myself, I often get told that if you want to pursue a career, it should be something you're really passionate about. And football for that is my passion. So for you, did you ever see yourself go on to work in a different profession where it was completely away from football, disregarding football, and you wanted to do something else? Or did you always see yourself being a part of football in some way?
Yeah, I always had a love for sports, and it just never really came up that I would do anything else. I think when I was starting to think, when you first have your careers day or whatever it is, when you're like 14, 15, I really again wanted to pursue football, playing football. No, not knowing, but knowing now that I wasn't anywhere near good enough then, but that's everything I knew, and I was working so hard towards it. But I kind of knew in the back of my head that if I didn't play, that I wanted to do something else. And early on it was coaching. And yeah, halfway through my university degree, I realized that sports media was really attractive. It seemed like a lot of fun. The guys that were doing it that I looked up to were, just seemed to be having a ball every time they went anywhere. Obviously, it's a lot harder work, as you know, behind the scenes and everything that you need to do. But to go back to the question, there just was never anything really that inspired me like sports did. I wouldn't say it was just football. I absolutely loved the Olympic Games growing up, and I did judo to a reasonable level. And it was always sports, and always kind of high performance sports. I loved learning about how people got better at anything they did, whether that was like the kind of nutrition side, whether it was the sports psychology side. I just had a fascination with how people achieved their peak. Never being able to do it myself, but seeing other people go on and be great, I found totally awe-inspiring, and was always I think always kind of planned or destined or whatever to go that way, because there was just nothing else that was going to kind of keep my attention.
Yeah, the driving factor for me for doing this and starting this about 2-3 years ago, just starting writing for James at 7500 a whole, the whole thing of me continuing doing it, the driving factor was my parents and my family supporting me and taking me to Villa games, taking me to here, there, to really practice and hone this craft. So for you pursuing a career in sports media, were your family supporting of you in the background? Did they support you through that process?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so lucky, and I think it's important that you recognize that as well, and that people generally that are watching this recognize what a lucky position a lot of us have been in to have supportive parents or grow up where we grow up. When you look at, not to get too deep too early, but when you look at like the world situation in various parts of the world, Israel, Palestine, you know, in parts of America, in Latin America, all over the world, there is, you know, life or death situations for guys that are younger than you even. And for me, you know, I grew up in a very safe village where you could go out and play and just have fun at age 8, 9, 10, and you come back and your tea's on the table and everything was great. And my parents were phenomenal and continue to be. Like they're so supportive of everything that I ever wanted to do, whether that was football training or, you know, I was doing judo 3 times a week and going to competitions at the weekend, and they would drive me there without fail. You know, my dad coached our football team. My mum did the raffle. They were super involved, and that was the same for my. I've got 3 sisters as well, so they would take my oldest sister to swimming. They'd take my second oldest sister to drama club. They'd take me everywhere I wanted to go. My little sister to football as well. You know, you think back as a kid and you don't realize they probably never saw each other for most of the week because they were running between different clubs. And I think when I remember quite vividly being a kid and being a bit of a brat, but we went to Wembley, which is obviously closer to us than Villa Park. And I can't remember what game it was. It was an England game, but we went and my dad took me and my sister. I think my mum probably came as well. And like I hadn't got something that I wanted, like whether it was a New England shirt or it was something, anyway, whatever it was. And I remember being a bit of a brat about it. And I must have been told, like, stop being so ungrateful, essentially. But it took me a few years to then realize like how expensive football is. And, you know, a family ticket for 4 people, plus food, plus travel, plus everything else, plus the shirts, plus everything that goes with it, you know, you're talking a small fortune. And for me to be able to have experienced that even in a you know, a semi-regular way, you know, we went to a few games this season. I just felt, looking back on that, I feel so grateful and so privileged to have that. And that's now, as a parent, something that I want to instill in my children, that they have these opportunities, but they also know, you know, that not everybody does have those opportunities. And I think it's good to remind ourselves sometimes, okay, yeah, no, we're really lucky here. And yourself going to Villa Park, it's an unbelievable experience. And I think all fans and all of us should just check ourselves every now and again and go, okay, yeah, well, no, we're lucky to be here.
I think for me, I analyze the whole theory of what does life mean over and over again, being in lockdown and being alone and being by myself. And the whole thing is, for me, it's a balance. It's about allowing freedom, but yet restricting individuals. For example, I would say for yourself with your son, and as a father, you want to embed those core values within him so he's the best human being he can be, but then allowing him freedom to go on in the world and explore what he likes and his passions. It's all about a balance, really. Totally.
Yeah. And we have this, we kind of have this global dialogue through social media now, where almost everybody has a platform. Everybody can say what they want. They can read what they want. You know, truth is a pretty fluid concept at times, where, you know, misinformation or the spreading of kind of one argument over the other can happen like a wildfire, and it takes over. And before you know it, that's what you believe, because you've kind of gone down that rabbit hole. And I think, you know, when I was growing up, we didn't have that. You know, the internet was, it makes me sound so old, but the internet was kind of coming into what it is now, when I was kind of 15, 16. And I look back on that with a kind of relief, I think, almost, in that I was able to kind of use the internet to find out more about sports and more about the things I wanted to, but it wasn't as widespread with Twitter and Instagram and the pressures, I think, that young people face. But for me now, it's really important that I teach my children to be the best people that they can be, absolutely, to make their own decisions, to make their own minds up, but also to make informed decisions that aren't rushed or aren't one-sided, because it's what I believe, but they have the opportunity to really read, to engage. And yeah, for me, that's going to be super important as they get older, that I provide those opportunities. So like what it's like to travel, and to travel to different places and experience different cultures, or to experience, for example, volunteering in homeless shelters, or that's something that I've done as an adult, but never really knew that as a teen or a young adult, and how you manage those kind of situations, and how you let the people around you, your sphere of influence, how you manage that, I think is going to be really interesting for me as a parent of young people to see how that works, because everyone's different, right? Everyone takes it in a different way, and we're just going to see what happens.
And talk about social media and the positives. Nowadays, with platforms like YouTube, and we've seen with the Villa View growing and other fan channels growing, you have the opportunity, like you said, to have a platform to say what you think, but in a concise way. And then you grow from that. You grow into a better individual. And if you really want to pursue a career in presenting or sports media like you have, platforms like the Villa View are such a perfect way to really hone your craft.
Yeah, social media gets a lot of bad press, and a lot of it is deserved, and I think there's a load more that can be done. When I click on any of the comments on Twitter nowadays, I almost instantly regret it, because they're full of things that just annoy me. But the other side of social media is really positive, and I look at the young people like yourselves who are almost half my age, and have actually half my age, who are able to kind of in your own back room or in your own bedroom create interesting, engaging content that tests you as not only a host and as a presenter, but tests your production skills, tests your audio skills to make the mute, to make the intros, or tests your graphic skills. When the Villa View started, so even before my time, that was still I was 25, 26 when I joined the Villa View. And even at uni, I was playing with YouTube. I went to uni in Edinburgh, and we had a student university led marathon. It's called the Meadows Marathon. And when I realized that I wanted to go into sports media, I was looking for different ways and how I could possibly hone my craft, like you said. And I created kind of high performance. If you look back on them now, they're terrible, so please don't go and find them.
I'm sure they're not.
So I created these kind of videos. So it's like, how do you pick the perfect running trainer for your foot so you can complete a marathon? What kind of music do you listen to that is going to psychologically or physically improve your performance? How do you train? How do you eat best? And I made these videos off my own back in my university flat, because I was interested in the subject and I wanted to put myself out there. And I did a bunch of those things. Like I volunteered at Hibs Football Club, who were getting relegated from the Scottish Premier League at that time. Or I worked at a local radio station just to kind of give myself those options. But generally, the options are so much more now, and you have those chances to be, to create something really special, whether that is presenting, whether that's a football podcast, whether it's taking your dog for a walk and doing dog tricks, whatever you want it to be. You have that opportunity to create it and make it look pretty good right off the bat. And I think as a young person, at 25, 26, I was already I was making content that, you know, I look back on now and go, okay, I could have done a lot better there. I could have done a lot better here. You started making content at kind of 13, 14. By the time you get to the point where you're probably looking for, you know, a full-time job, you may well have 10 years in the bank of content creation, and where you're at a 22-year-old is going to be completely different to where you were as a 13-year-old. I think that's great that you can bank all that content. You don't necessarily need to keep it online. You can do what you want with it. But I think the opportunities now are phenomenal. And I mean, with that comes the other side of it, where everything is online and everything stays online. And you know, you're seeing the cricketer Robinson, whose tweets emerged, you know, as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, he was tweeting stupid stuff, and absolutely he shouldn't have tweeted those kind of things. He never should have said those things. But as a young person, you do say those things sometimes, and or some people do, and it happens, and you're not proud of it. But the fact that everything is online, is there to stay, is concerning as well. Like, I again thank my lucky stars that Twitter wasn't around when I was, you know, 15, 16, because I was an idiot, like most teenage boys. I said stupid stuff that I would never say now, and I 100% would have put things online that I thought were funny at the time, and are not funny. And I feel quite lucky now, I guess, that I got to grow up in that time where we saw a digital revolution, but it didn't immediately affect me. And doing what I do now in the communications world, you know, you see all too often these guys that are in that age range, growing up with Twitter when it was so new in kind of 2010, 2011. They didn't realize the power of it, and now it's come back to bite them a little bit. And so I think, yeah, there's two sides of that. There's the brilliant for you that you get to make content and you get to be creative, but I think you need to be wary of it, be respectful of it, and you need to grow up a lot faster. Not you, one needs to grow up a lot faster in that age where, you know, you can't afford to make those kind of public mistakes.
Just analysing this conversation on like a psychological basis, in terms of mindsets you can either have. I think this is what separates those who excel and those who don't within life, is having that growth or fixed mindset. And for example, creating content, I could start off, the stuff I did like 7, 8, 9, the start of lockdown, the stuff I did then is absolutely awful. Like, I look back at that and see the progression of myself, and it's having that growth mindset of thinking, right, I start from here, I continue to improve. Yes, the content I made a year ago was bad, but the fact that I've got a growth mindset and willing to learn and willing to go on and progress. Whereas if you have a fixed mindset and you think, okay, I'm brilliant at this, I need to continue what I'm doing, that's what really separates those who excel massively, like you have in Germany, and Dan's gone on to do the England show of the Athletic, and Dan Rollinson's gone on to work for Birmingham Mail, etc. You guys have worked on YouTube, improved your craft, and gone on to excel. And that's what I think the growth or fixed mindset thing, looking on a psychological basis, that's what separates people from excelling or not.
Yeah, I think there's an idea sometimes that if you can't do it straight away, it's not worth doing. You know, I feel that very much moving to Germany, and you know, I'm not a linguist. My German was not great when I arrived, and it's not great now. But I am practicing every day, and it's so super frustrating. And I think with maybe this is a simplification of it, but the emergence of something like Instagram, where we just want to take perfect photos straight away, and you can snap it and put a filter on it and make life look amazing. And then you're scrolling through everybody else's life going, oh, wow, they've got so much great stuff going for them. And you only see the good stuff. And it all happens because an app has made it look perfect for you. I think that certainly with my generation, and maybe that's changed already, but that everybody wants it to be instant. Everybody wants to be at the top level straight away, and life just doesn't work like that. Like I've been here 16 months, and my German is a lot better than it was a year ago, but it's still not very good. I went to pick my car up from the garage yesterday, and we had to really battle through the conversation because I'm just not where I want to be. But I know that, and I understand that, and I use that as a motivation to go, okay, I really don't want to have that painful conversation again. So how do I get better? How do I improve? And I think that's the same with work and with life. It doesn't come out perfect. It doesn't, and not everything is wrapped up in a neat little package. Dan didn't just get offered the Athletic England job because they saw him on the street and thought, oh, that's a nice Brummy accent. Let's put him up there. He's grafted for 15, 16 years, maybe slightly less, but maybe I'm aging him slightly. But he started doing things where nobody watched, nobody saw them, or he was writing things that nobody read. And that's the same for all of us. My YouTube series, which probably picked up 60 or 70 views in the last 10 years. Nobody sees that, but it does. You're right. There's a growth thing there where it's like you have to get out of that present day. Oh, nobody's looked at this. Oh, it's only got 3 likes. Oh, this is that. You have to look at it from your own standpoint and go, okay, I'm proud of that in that time, but I see that I could have done that better, or I erred an arm there, or my editing wasn't that tight there, and next time I do it, I'm going to go for it again. And I think, from taking it back to a personal point of view, I did the Villa View and I did other bits and pieces, but I worked for Sky for 5 years, working my way up into a journalism and then an editorial position. It was hard graft. I gave a lot of my time for free. I did a lot of night shifts for free. There were times where I was just like, do I have time for this? I had my marriage was very young at that stage. I wanted to spend time with my wife, with my friends, and then I took a job in a very demanding, small but very successful PR firm that worked super hard in the Olympic world. It was where I wanted to go, but it was a lot of work and a lot of travel. And again, it put pressures on other areas of life. I think Chris Dolan talked about that as well with you. Like, things are difficult. You have to make difficult decisions, and things don't just fall in your lap. But if you want to chase them, then you need to be able to accept that not everything's going to go your way all of the time. You need to go, okay, and it's hard to do in that present time, but you need to go, okay, that didn't go for me, but it's not a personal thing. It's happened, and I'm going to look at how I could have done that better, and then go again.
I mean, moments of success with you in terms of the Villa View, you did the live shows, is that match against the Villa on tour, and that just experiencing those different things whilst being at the Villa View, having that glimpses of this is what could be in the future if you continue to work at the rate you're doing. Did that really help you to motivate you to go on and pursue that career in the Bundesliga as well?
It's a great question, because I think I had quite a hard split on what I wanted to do. First of all, I don't think I've never had just one dream. I have a lot of dreams, both professional and in my personal life as well, where I wanted to achieve things. I wanted things to happen. Some of them have happened, some of them haven't happened yet, and some of them look very far away. But what we did with the Villa View when I joined, Dan and Matt had already created a great platform for Villa fans, and they were doing, great work with previews and with fan cams, and that was awesome. And when I met Dan at Sky and we became friends and we started, hanging out a lot more, I felt like I could take a part of that and offer another service. So like the podcast, for example, I felt at that time that my love for Villa was kind of drifting, because I wasn't that close. Villa were playing very badly, and it was a tough watch. And I think there was a lot of negativity around Villa at that time. Dan was this super positive, relentlessly going, traveling from London super fan, for want of a better word. And I was the other side of that. I was a kind of drifting fan where I was kind of like, this is okay. If people ask me in a bar, I'm going to say I'm a Villa fan, but realistically, I didn't go to games. I was watching them on TV, but I wasn't making a huge effort. And I wanted to get back to being a fan. And so I said to Dan, like, I think this is something we can do together. And, we put it to Dan Rollinson, who was ultimately the kind of decision maker at that time. And he said, sure, let's give it a whirl. And it went from where it was. And I think it was successful because, you had Dan, who knows every squad number since 92, versus you have me who, okay, I'm up to date with what's going on right now. I'm nowhere near as encyclopedic as he is, but I think I hopefully related with fans who lived in the States or who lived, in Bristol or wherever, who didn't go to games every day, who felt a little bit disengaged from the club. And I think that's certainly what I wanted to bring with the podcast. And that's where I felt, my role was. I never wanted to try and be in comparison with Dan because it just wouldn't have worked. But instead, we created this thing where I think we bounced off each other quite nicely, and it grew. And to do the live shows was one of the most special moments of my life, because we were able to raise a lot of money. We had people that came and paid, paid for charity, but paid all the same to come and fill a room at Villa Park and give their time and give their energy and give their money to watch us talk with Ian Taylor or talk with Amy West and Emma Follis, and that was brilliant for me. I buzzed off that, and we've had similar things with Stilian Petrov. Again, a really special moment where we arranged it. It took months to get here, and even on the morning, it was Petrov's 40th birthday the weekend before, and he sent us a message that morning, just going, guys, I'm not sure about this. He's got to take friends back to the airport and maybe had a few too many drinks. And we'd already come up from London, and we were just like, if you can't do it, you can't do it. Absolutely no problem. But, we're up now. We've taken the day off. Is it possible? And he came and did it. And he said, all right, guys, I've got 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And we talked for like 2 hours. And he gave us everything that he had in his in his memory of his moments of Villa, and it was just so special. And again, it comes from a place of, all right, we weren't ready to do the Stilian Petrov the first time we entered the podcast studio. We didn't have that relationship, we didn't have the repertoire, but over kind of 3 years of podcasting together, Dan and I built that, and Chris as well absolutely shouldn't be forgotten in that he was a huge part of that too. And it got to a point where the Villa View was pretty big. I had a couple of very surreal moments, if you'll indulge me, where I was on the train and I looked over and I could see like more than one person listening to the preview that we'd done.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like, oh my gosh, that's mad that the people that are going to the game now care about certainly what Dan has to say, but I'm on that too. And how that all fits together. People would come up to you and talk to you about Villa. And that's what, if I come back to my original point where I was drifting as a fan, and now I was kind of at the heart of this community of certainly those that listened, I was a part of that again. And for me, coming from Cambridge, not having gone to that many games as a kid, and now going to kind of 10 or so games a season, it's still not as many as lots of people, but I was part of that community, and that's what I wanted out of the podcast, and that's where that had led me. But I think, I've forgotten the original question at this point, but again, kind of shows the journey that the podcast went on, and that certainly helped. It's helped my career. It's helped my confidence. It's helped my just enjoyment of football. And stepping back from the podcast was a decision I needed to make for my professional career, and I miss it. I miss talking with Dan. We talk obviously on WhatsApp and whatever, but I miss interacting with the fans and creating content. But there will be other opportunities. I think that's an important thing to remember as well. It's because it's done now. For me, that doesn't mean that it's done forever.
And a Villa View, what it does really is the main principles of it, and what it did do is it opens up discussion for the fans, and it helps to create a really collective and cohesive unit within the fan base for people to talk to each other. Even if you're not from England, like you said, Australia, America, those fans who are really passionate about the club, even though they're miles and miles away, they can still be connected through you and Dan and your podcast. And I'll put into perspective, I hosted fan cams a few times, and I was in the stands watching the game, and some guy came to talk to me because he saw me on the Villa View. I was on there only a few times, and just the element of discussion that's created from appearing on there and talking to people, it's a magnificent thing. And to see them carrying on with it, and hopefully in the future that'll expand again whilst fans are back in, and just fan content on the whole with the Villa on Tour and Jude's journey and all these different perspectives. That's what fan content really is. And I look forward to it continuing to blossom around the world when fans do come back to stadiums and that passion's reignited again. Yeah,
when before the decision was made that I was going to move to Germany, Dan and I would meet, fairly regularly outside of a podcast setting to talk about what we wanted to do, how we wanted to grow it. And obviously, we had Dan Rollinson, who is an unbelievable editor and doing great things at the Mail now. But for when we were starting that journey, to have someone of his caliber, and again, he grew massively as the productions went on. To have someone like that, we were kind of like, all right, how do we test him? How do we make more content that is engaging for Villa fans that Rollo can stick his teeth into as well? And someone like yourself, I was very vocal about getting younger people on to help present, help produce this content, because I felt like we had a platform that we thought was good, but we didn't get a huge amount of love from the club. We did a couple of things with the club, which were brilliant for us personally, but then and Dan was obviously doing a season presenting with Ian Taylor at the club, but then it kind of dried up a little bit, and we felt a bit frustrated by that. When we looked at someone like Talk Norwich City and Jack and Chris Reeve there have so much support from the club, and they get players, and they there was a real bond between those two. We felt like we're not that far off that. It just needed a bit of a push. And so for me, it became more when we got to a certain level, it was right, how can we then raise up other fans? How can we bring yourself into it? How can we bring like Mark Jarobi into it, who is an excellent presenter himself, a beautiful American voice, and how do we continue reaching different parts of the fan base? We wanted to do a women's show. We wanted to do a kind of fans around the world show, and all of these ideas were good ideas, I think, in principle, but it came from two guys who were working full time, with wives, with families, who, maybe in a different time, different space, different support, it could have grown even more. But I think it was such a fan interactive experience that we created that I thought it could have gone even further. And life took me away, and the pandemic then hit, and I think in its own way, the Villa View then took on even more responsibility in terms of kind of trying to bring the fans together with the way that the show worked with the Purity post-match pint and that kind of thing, to bring fans on every week and that kind of thing. It was a different way of doing things, but I think it worked at the time. And now, yeah, you're right, Dan and Chris and all of the guys that are involved, there's a bit more of a rotating cast there now. How does that work when Dan certainly is at the games every week? How does that look, and how do they grow that? I think that's a really interesting question. I'm as intrigued as everybody else to kind of see how that manifests itself, because as we started off, there's still a lot of fans that won't return to the stadiums because they either can't get a season ticket. Thank God that there are so many fans that there's a waiting list for season tickets, or they're not in a position to. They can't afford to. They live too far away. They live internationally. So how does the Villa View continue to respect and represent those fans? I think that's going to be an interesting point as we go forward into the next season.
Tom, you've been a pleasure. I want to ask you one more question, if you don't mind. And we've talked about different aspects of your life and going from Cambridge to the Bundesliga and being part of the Villa View. You've been through different stages in your life. And I really want to ask you this question because I've asked it to a few people now, Dan, Chris, etc. I've asked it to a few people, and I want to ask it you. What is the meaning of life for you? And has that changed throughout your life?
Oh, wow, what a question. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed throughout my life. How do I word this? Yeah, so I grew up, as I said, in a loving family, a wonderful kind of experience growing up, and full of happy memories. And then I went to university. I'm lucky enough to be able to go to university. Great flatmates, great fun, a lot of good crack. Crack as in fun, not crack as in crack. Just hasten to add.
Careful.
Yeah, exactly. Just to stipulate that. And then I was again lucky enough to meet my wife. My wife who brought me to church. Church is something that's become a really important part of my life in my adult life. And we have 2 children now. And it's just been a kind of continual journey. I think one thing that's been consistent, or not consistent, but maybe that I know now that maybe I didn't know when I was kind of your age, younger, was not to worry too much about what's happening in the present, because there will be other times, there will be other opportunities. I think there's a danger that we are so wrapped up in what's happening right now in our personal lives. Oh, I didn't get that, or I didn't get that grade, or nobody's watching this that I'm making. For me, I had that even at the age of kind of 25, 26, where I felt like I wasn't being appreciated in what I was doing kind of professionally. And I left that job, and I was like, okay, the dream there to be a journalist, or the dream to be, a host or whatever, is gone. I'm closing the door on that, and that's fine. And then a couple of years later, something else comes along. And this, you just never know what's hanging till it drops, as my dad would say. There's always something else there. And if you keep knocking on the door, good things will come. And I think, I don't know whether that's the meaning of life or not, but I think the way that we persevere with things, the way that we keep a good spirit, that we act in the right way, and that we continue to kind of respect each other and respect what we do personally ourselves, has to be the thing that drives us, because that's the thing that we can control. I can sit here and tell you to do one thing or another, and you'll choose to do that, or you won't. I can choose to do that for myself, and I can help my son and my daughter to do those things. So I think if we continue to be a positive sphere of influence for those around us, then that's all we can do, and that's what we've got to keep on doing.
Tom, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you. It's a pleasure for me to speak to you, Liam, and big fan of your work. So keep it going, keep it up, and looking forward to seeing more of these come.
Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed it too. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. But most importantly, stay safe, stay well, and up the Villa.
I keep being too caught up by all my demons, lost without